la famille.
So, my friends, it's time to start. Entrepreneurs are exploring a new field, emotional intelligence. All right, what are we talking about? So, as I've told you, I am the CEO and co-founder of The Family. And not only as a founder, I've had to deal with my own company during these times, but The Family's mission itself is about taking care of entrepreneurs. 150, 800 people, 150 startups, 800 people, to be precise. And all of them are shaken up by the crisis directly. And what I wanted to tell you first, to make it clear from the start, in case some of you would still pretend or deny the fact, since the start of the lockdown, everybody is struggling. Everybody has been struggling since the start, and everybody still is, okay? Of course, some startups benefited from this giant switch. I'm talking about the educational tools, the healthcare software, or the hand sanitizers, Merci Andy, for instance. Of course, you can say as well, some entrepreneurs have raised funds before COVID. They were lucky. Of course, some entrepreneurs saw no change, actually, no incident in their revenue, luckily. And of course, some took public loans, and good for them. But still everybody is struggling. First, because we've had to adapt to the lockdown. Then we've had to adapt to the sanitary measures. Yeah. Sorry, I thought I had lost you. So we've had to adapt. We've had to adapt to the border closure, right? And most importantly, we've had to accept this uncertainty. No one today can anticipate any events that will happen within more than a month. It's impossible. And I'm not even talking about the elections in the US happening on November 3. I'm not even talking about that. I'm just focusing on the impact of COVID itself. So uncertainty has tons of consequences: anxiety, fears, and loneliness, okay? But you can tell me, yes, Alice, entrepreneurs are agile. They are used to start from a blank page. They can look at a problem and they see in it an opportunity to create a new business. They observe the bugs. They want to fix these bugs. And yes, entrepreneurs are thriving in chaos, right? That's all what we know here. And most of you here attending this event are entrepreneurs or employees in startup. And you know that entrepreneurs are supposedly thriving in chaos. Okay, but when the context itself is chaotic, it's like you multiply chaos by chaos and the result are an infinite mess, okay? And what I mean by that is you can innovate and thrive in chaos if the context is stable, right? You know that. And of course, the result is that it can be paralyzing. It can feel paralyzing. And everybody is staring at each other, wondering, do you have any solution? And actually, no. No one has one solution. And the role of a CEO, the role of a manager, because it's not only for entrepreneurs or managers, it can be sometimes, it can be sometimes schizophrenic. Schizophrenic in the sense that you have to promote a certain vision, you have to sell this vision, and this vision is not yet done. By definition, it's a vision, so it's a potential future. So you need to show confidence. You need to be able to share a coherent storytelling, right? This is one side of the role of the CEO, the entrepreneur, the founder, or the manager. In the meantime, you are the one in charge of providing a stable environment for your team so they can build that vision properly, so they can execute the work, so they can be focused on the day-to-day reality. So schizophrenic because you are both, in the meantime, selling a vision that is not there yet, and keeping a frame that is stable and that is really data-driven and grounded and rooted in the reality, right? And this is a normal mission of a CEO. But during COVID, the mission of the CEOs have been intensified. They've had to say goodbye to team members, and this is super hard. They've had to cut some cost. Okay, some tools were maybe unnecessary and it's good to clean up, but still it's a change and that's not comfortable, right? They've had to be managing the doubts and the questions of all their remaining employees. They've had to be managing the doubts and questions of their investors. They've had to be managing the doubts and questions of their service providers, business partners, etc., and so on. So you understand why, in this context, entrepreneurs are going through something special, and this context creates an explosive cocktail. And it explains also the rise in burnouts. So the very, very first thing that I wanted to share with you, my friends, is that it's not just one isolated case, it's everybody. Everybody is struggling. And if you recognize that, now we're talking. Now we're talking about emotional intelligence, and that awareness is the very first step, to be precise, when we talk about emotional intelligence. So what is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence. So I really recommend you to watch some speeches from a scientist, a science journalist, Daniel Goleman. He's an author of the best-selling book, Emotional Intelligence, and he has a very good videos online. So he wrote this book. It was a bestseller in 1995, but emotional intelligence started to be a concept in the 60s, okay? So the definition of emotional intelligence, basically, it is the capability of individuals to recognize their own emotions and those of others, okay? To be able to see it, to understand, to see the signal and to understand there is an emotion, to discern between different feelings and label it appropriately. This is anger, this is sadness, is jealous, etc. To use these emotions, this emotional information to guide thinking and behavior, and to manage and to adjust emotions to adapt to environment or to achieve a specific goal, okay? This is emotional intelligence. I think you already know. I'm not teaching you anything, but it's good to remind yourself the definition of emotional intelligence. What are we talking about? And the Daniel Goleman, I was talking you about just before, he gave an array of skills that are directly talking about related to emotional intelligence, and you will see the link with leadership. You have basically 5 main traits when it comes to emotional intelligence. Self-awareness, so your ability to know your own emotions, your drive, your values, your goals, and how they impact on others. Self-regulation, meaning you can control your impulse, okay? Social skills, you are able to manage relationship and to get along well with others. Empathy, we'll be talking a lot about empathy during this meeting. And empathy, you know, it's being able to consider other people's feeling, to put yourself in their shoes, actually. And motivation. This is key motivation when you are an entrepreneur or a manager. Motivation is being aware of what motivates the others. All right. So now you know that we are all struggling. Now you know that emotional intelligence is important for your leadership, and it starts by recognizing the fact that everybody is struggling and it's hard for everybody. Now we can start. So now we can start. I have 6 keys I wanted to share with you. If I look at the last 6 months that I've been accompanying the startups during this phase, that I wanted to share with you. Some are illustrated by examples of startups. So here are the 6 keys. The first one is that the most important one, I would say, is that you need to create a support system made of peers. So you're not alone in this, and one of the first thing I've seen of in the attitude of our entrepreneurs, of how they dealt, how they managed to get out of this situation easily, not easily, but I would say faster than others, maybe, is because they were surrounded. Okay, so during the lockdown, I've been myself dealing with tons of doubt and this feeling of sadness. As I told you, cost cutting, it's for me as well. It's true for me. It's true for the startups, and it means having to say goodbye to some of your teammates, people that you love, and deciding for us as a family, we've had to decide to finally leave our office spaces. Teammates are more important. But the teammates that left the family, they are young, they are full of resources, and we have a long-term relationships. So they are turning entrepreneurs, already starting their own business. In the end, it's good news. Of course, it's good news, but still, there is this moment when you take this decision, you have to acknowledge this emotion of sadness, because you ask an entrepreneur to always be in the next, build the future, but this can happen also only if you recognize that there is a time for a thing, and there is a time for recognizing sadness as well. And talking about the space, because it's been a topic, yes, of course, this space were not strategically necessary to keep on achieving our mission, because we as the family, we accompany startups wherever they are. So actually, they don't care really where we are based geographically. They want us to be available anytime, basically. And to host our event or educational event, as you can see today, tonight, we can switch online. So it's not in itself something that is sad, but I would have lied to myself if I would say that I was not moved or feeling sad or you name it. Okay, so even if entrepreneurs are here to look at unexpected change positively, there are things you lose, and it needs a moment to recognize it, to name it, to be aware of it, and to accept it. And it's not something you can profoundly share with your team, because they are already sad as well. So your role is to talk openly about the reality, of course, but you are here to motivate them. So it's not something neither you can really share openly on social networks, for instance. No one is doing it, and it's understandable. You don't want to add a sad note to the general mood when it's already down. And the most of the reactions that you see are on the opposite side. All CEOs saying, yes, let's make the best out of this crisis. And I understand why, because it's important to keep the positive mindset. Emotions can be shared with your co-founders, and that's a good part of it, but not too long, because with your co-founders, you are together focused on making things happen. So who can you share your emotion with? That's the question. If you cannot share it with your team, not really profoundly with your co-founders, not with the crowd, you can actually create this circle of peers. And that's super important. It's something to share. It's important to create this group of peers. Other founders that are not directly interested in your company's success, okay? Something magic happens when you dare sharing your emotions with your peers, because you've been through what I could call the dark nights of the soul, because you haven't denied that sadness, you actually connect with other peers on a much more profound level. And actually, that's one of the rules of Pixar storytelling. Rule number 11. They say if you want to create a great story, there is this rule saying you cannot have your main character that is not vulnerable. They have to show their vulnerability. Otherwise, no one can identify with a super strong and pure hero with no flaws. It doesn't work, okay? So I like to remind myself this rule because it's human, it's normal. We need to identify, and when you've been through hard times and you are courageous enough to share this sadness with other peers, then you can connect. And so during COVID, I've seen founders connecting. I've seen founders creating these little circles, and I've been myself creating my own groups of peers. There are founders that I could call every day, anytime. We could talk together about anything. And that is what I call a support system. And I was super proud to see that among the family, organically, naturally, founders were doing so. And often it's not the founders you are close or friends with. It's actually people you respect for what they do, and you feel safe when you are sharing with them what you are going through. And I really encourage all the entrepreneurs doing so. It's still necessary today. Okay. All right. The second key is to take emotions seriously. And on this one, I have an example that I wanted to give you. It's an entrepreneur, Thibaut, the CEO of Jubilee. So I've been exchanging with the founders, the startups on Slack, on the family Slack. And I had wrote a message to all the founders to share with them the mission of the family, where we were standing, and how we wanted them to know that we were supportive and here for them. And I was insisting on two aspects. The first aspect being, okay, entrepreneurs, it's time to create these little circles, these support systems. And two, it's time as well to start listening to your employees' emotions. So take care of your own emotions, surround yourself, and take care of your employees' emotions. And that's a new field as well, okay? And I remember the reaction, and I think I've had the screenshot. Yes, you have the screenshot in the presentation. And so I ended up my message on love and supportive reactions from the founders. And Thibaut, the founder of Jubilee, said this. So just for you to know, Jubilee is a startup designed for exactly for that. It's designed to collect the mood of the employees. So every day an employee can say if he feels overwhelmed, if he feels happy, or if he feels in a good or a bad mood. Actually, it's much more precise than this, but you can have directly the mood of the people. Okay. And so Jubilee he was saying some little rules, the same as I've been sharing with you. Everyone is struggling. Talk to your team every day, even if remote. Communicate on what is going well, and what is not. Get out of your home and work with them physically, if possible, time to time. Take time for yourself, sport and relax. Communicate on how your vision and the market are evolving, because your employees are no doubt wondering. And Thibaut is really at the heart of this emotional intelligence topic, because he's been gathering more than 75,000 users on his platform, sharing every day their emotion, and giving the data, it's anonymous, to the managers, so they could really see the mood of their teams. Because it's one thing to say, share your emotion with your team and talk more openly and communicate. It's another thing to actually get the real data of how your people feel, how the teammates feel. You have other tools. I'm promoting JBWE because they are part of the family, of course, and they are amazing, and I know the product. But there are other tools. You need some tools up to a certain time to really be able to quantify the feeling, the emotions, and the mood of the people. This is not enough. It's not enough, and we will talk about it with Christine later on. She's she's the CEO and co-founder of Butler Health, marketplace for therapists and employees. We will talk about that. As the CEO, you're not a therapist, okay? But during a one-on-one, I'm sure you've seen it recently, the one-on-one are not the same. The employees are much more doubting, and you need to manage these new emotions. You need to take care of these emotions, and you need as well not to be afraid to open that door and to dare to ask the question, how are you feeling for real? And that's a lot on your shoulder, I know, and you are not here to fix this, but at least to open the conversation about this. We're going to talk about therapists, and we're going to talk about coaches. Coaches with Eric, who is the co-founder of Sidekick and who has a solution about it. All right. So you understood this key. This one is take emotion seriously. You need a tool, and you need to open the conversation about it. So you don't need to be rich to create value. Basically, what motivates team, it's during hard times. You've seen it. There is this emerging solidarity during the lockdown. I think it will remain. I don't understand why people are saying, no, everything will go back to normal. People will forget what happened. And this vision of a new world, that's a dream, it will fade away. No, what happened, happened. And everybody has been noticing and witnessing it. And we all appreciate it. So actually, it has shown that collectively we could make an impact and bring solutions. And entrepreneurs have been playing a huge role in it. So I would just like to illustrate that point with Nestor. Nestor provides each day delicious menu cooked by a chef to workers. He replaces the company's canteen, if you want, but since COVID, his startup has been undergoing a drop in commands. But sixth, the CEO decided to deliver for free the caregivers in hospitals. This move allowed his team to be highly motivated and to feel involved, to get out of the powerless zone, and to feel proud of being part of something bigger than just a startup in the food industry. So solidarity is not something that only big corporations like Salesforce, for instance, can implement in their culture. It's not secondary. It's not a secondary priority. You can consider solidarity and this mindset to create value, not only once you're rich and stable enough. It's actually the reason why the people join the company. It gives a meaning. Okay, so this is the third key. Fourth key, focus on what's work. And on this one, I wanted to talk about Raphael, the CEO of Totem. Raphael is Totem is a startup that provides the equivalent of a cafeteria, basically, in office spaces. You can see it on the left. Raphael wasn't on the luckiest side of COVID. His company was delivering breakfast for the offices, and their comments went down when the lockdown started. He's been thinking of plenty of solutions. He's a young dude full of wisdom, and most of his ideas were not working, but finally he's got an idea, and this idea worked. He asked to his client, would you like to offer breakfast and healthy snacking to your employees, but at home? Yes, yes, of course. And this means a whole new process. This means in terms of organization, it's totally different from delivering an office space to delivering people all over the city, right? So he didn't think, Raphael, he didn't think, how can Totem, as it is today, can work? He first focused on what could work, and then I'll figure out how later. Okay, so once he got the go from his clients, he learned. Finally he teamed up. He found a solution among the family team. Joe, it's a startup already delivering food at your door. So they teamed up, and the users, encouraged by their company, could order Totem breakfast through Joe application. Okay, so this is important. Focus on what works. Don't wait to have the how already clear. Fifth one, focus on the present. On this one, I wanted to talk about the smart sitting. So if you wait for the context to come back to normal, it's super painful. Here in France, for instance, the contaminations of COVID are going up again. We're not fully under a proper lockdown, but no one knows when we'll be able to gather as we used to again. So I was talking with the CEO of the smart sitting, who has a babysitting platform. So basically, it's for parents looking for a great babysitter to take care of their children. And the CEO was discussing with his client, the parents, on the phone, and the parents were all saying, sorry, but we don't know when things will get back to normal. So we cannot anticipate when we will go out and when we will need a babysitter. And rather than expecting something to happen, he decided to take this situation as a new reality, the reality that he has to cope with. And he created a service dedicated to companies willing to provide perks for their employees with their kids at home. So while they are doing home office. So that's a whole new story. So he trains his babysitters to entertain the kids while the parents might be there. So he integrates the sanitary protocol, and his service is now working. So focus on the present, meaning that you take this as a continuous situation and not expect for it to go back to normal. And finally, I will end on this. So you've seen it, huh? It feels super weird to do a Zoom coffee or beer time on Zoom. No one dares starting a conversation. If you are more than 5 people, it becomes a nightmare. It's only a series of monologue. There is no spontaneous conversation if you are on a Zoom call. Why? Because we've been copying and pasting on Zoom what used to be cool in the reality, but this doesn't work. We know it already. It's like when the first online magazine were digitized, you had an experience where you could turn the pages. You lose the best of touching an object, and you don't have the most important, which is the content itself. But we're human, and that's how we do the things. So we try to do it exactly the way we used to know, and then we understand we need to reinvent it fully and totally. So during the discussion with remote work, with a remote house, we're going to talk about these interesting habits that we can apply when it comes to remote work. But 2 things are important. One, make explicit what used to be implicit. So a lot of written communication, being able to answer quickly when someone is asking you something, and much more one-on-ones. And 2, dedicating real moments to just socialize and enjoy being together. And for me, for instance, at the family, it's being with my team on Friday and cooking together. And for the CEO of Job Contact, Denise, that I really like, he was telling me on the phone that he took an Airbnb for 2 months. And with all of his team, he enjoyed this time because they were happily under the sun, working together. And only this special period would provide this special setup. And he's not, as you can see, he's a daddy with kids. He's not a typical young dude with totally free. Amen. All right. Okay, we're done. These were my 6 keys based on the family's experience, based on the experience of our startups. Que la famille.